My sister told me to die, and my mom laughed. That's when I knew I had to escape, or I'd never survive. I was still holding my phone, Jessica's message burning into my retinas. You're worthless. No one loves you. Just do it already. My hands shook, but not from fear, from the realization that they wanted me gone. I don't remember the last time I felt safe in this house. Maybe I never did. The walls around me weren't walls. They were bars, and every locked door was just another reminder that I was a prisoner, not in the literal sense, but in every way that mattered. I had no freedom, no voice, no way out. They say home is supposed to be a sanctuary, a place where love shields you from the cruelty of the world. But for me, the real cruelty lived inside these walls. The outside world, cold and indifferent as it may be, had to be better than what I endured here. At least out there, pain wasn't packaged as love. Linda Carter, my mother, was a master manipulator. She had perfected the art of playing the victim, spinning reality like a spider weaving an inescapable web. One minute, she could dissolve into tears so convincingly you'd swear she was the most heartbroken woman alive. The next, she'd be smirking at your pain, enjoying the way you crumbled under her words. Her favorite phrase, the one she used to wrap her control around me like a noose, was always the same. No one in this world will ever love you like I do, and if I don't love you, who will? It was meant to sound comforting, but all I ever heard was a threat. And then there was Jessica, my older sister. If Linda was the architect of my misery, Jessica was the enforcer. She wasn't just cruel, she thrived on it. Watching me suffer was her favorite entertainment, and she never missed an opportunity to remind me just how worthless I was. Her go-to insult, repeated like a broken record. Who do you think you are? The words came with sneers, smirks, and sometimes a sharp flick to the back of my head, just enough to make me stumble. If I cried, she laughed. If I stayed quiet, she pushed harder, searching for a crack in my composure. It was a game to her, a daily ritual, and I was her favorite toy. Life in this house was a never-ending loop of psychological warfare. If I made a mistake, I was screamed at. If I showed emotion, I was mocked. If I dared to push back, I was manipulated into submission. I wasn't living. I was enduring. But somewhere, deep inside, a quiet rebellion had started to take shape. It wasn't much at first, just small, fleeting thoughts. What if I left? What if I had a life beyond this? What if I was more than what they told me I was? I held onto those thoughts in secret, like a smuggled ember in the palm of my hand. I couldn't let them see it, or they'd snuff it out before it had a chance to burn. I had a plan, a way out. I didn't know if it would work, but I knew one thing for sure. If I stayed, I would never survive. But I had no idea. I was about to make a mistake that would unleash a storm of rage I wasn't prepared to face. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet. I sat at the table, cutting my toast into small, neat squares, pretending I had an appetite. I wasn't hungry, but I needed to look normal. Needed to act like this was just another evening. Like I wasn't about to change everything. Linda sat across from me, sipping her tea, her gaze sharp, unreadable. She wasn't eating. She was watching me. "You've been acting strange lately," she said, voice deceptively soft. "Is there something you need to tell me?" I hesitated. My pulse quickened. I could lie, say no, force a smile, pretend nothing was wrong. That would be safer. But I was tired of lying, tired of walking on eggshells, tired of being a prisoner in my own home. I set my fork down. My hands felt too cold, my breathing too shallow. I glanced at the clock. The second hand seemed to tick louder than usual, each movement marking the last moments of normalcy before everything shattered. "Mom!" My voice wavered. I forced myself to look at her. "I want to leave. For college. I'm moving out." Silence. A thick, suffocating stillness settled over the room. Linda's fingers tightened around her teacup, her knuckles going white. She didn't blink. Then, slowly, she placed her cup down. The click of porcelain against the table sent a sharp jolt through my spine. "What?" I swallowed. I found a school that... No. One word. Cold. Absolute. I pushed forward. "Mom, I've been saving up. I have a plan. I need to..." Need! The word burst from her lips, her voice twisting with fury. She slammed her hands onto the table so hard my plate rattled. You think you need to leave me? After everything I've done for you? My throat tightened. My palms were damp. Linda's expression shifted. Her lips trembled, her eyes glassy with sudden tears. So that's it? She whispered. You don't love me anymore? I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, the tears disappeared, like they had never been there. Her face hardened, her voice rising in a furious crescendo. You ungrateful little bitch! The words cracked through the air like a whip. She grabbed her teacup and hurled it against the wall. It shattered, porcelain shards scattering across the floor. I gave you everything, she screamed. I sacrificed my life for you, and this is how you repay me? Footsteps. A shadow in the doorway. Jessica leaned against the frame, smirking. What's going on here? Linda whirled around, her rage turning in my direction like a heat-seeking missile. This selfish, ungrateful little whore wants to abandon her family. Jessica raised an eyebrow. Really? Well. She stepped into the room, eyes gleaming. So you think you're too good for us now? That's not, I started, but Jessica grabbed my chin, her nails digging into my skin. Let me guess, she said, tilting her head, her smile a cruel slash across her face. You think you're special, that you'll leave here and have some perfect little life. But let me tell you something, baby sister. She leaned in closer, her breath hot against my cheek. You're nothing. You'll always be nothing. I yanked my head away, my pulse pounding. Jessica chuckled. Oh, don't be so dramatic. I'll even help you pack. But do us all a favor. Don't ever come crawling back. Linda's laughter erupted, loud, unhinged. Oh, Jessica, you're hilarious, she cackled. Look at her. She actually thought she could just leave. Jessica joined in, their laughter swirling around me like smoke, thick and choking. I felt like I was sinking, drowning. I needed to get out. I locked myself in my room, my hands shaking as I pulled out my phone. A notification. A message from Jessica. My stomach clenched. I didn't want to open it, but I did. You're garbage. You don't deserve to be alive. No one would care if you died. I hope you get raped again. My lungs seized. My vision blurred. She knew. She knew about what happened to me, and she was glad. I gasped, dropping my phone onto the bed. My whole body trembled. They didn't just want to control me, they wanted to break me. I wiped my face, my breath shuddering. I couldn't stay. Not after this. Not when my own sister wished the worst possible fate upon me. I stood, staring at my reflection in the cracked mirror. My eyes were swollen, my lips pale, but somewhere beneath the exhaustion, something burned. A decision. I was leaving, no matter what. I grabbed my phone, my hands steady now. My heart still pounded, but not from fear. From resolve. Because for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I had to do. I dropped my phone onto the bed, my hands shaking. My whole body felt numb, like something inside me had snapped. My vision blurred as I stared at the words on the screen. The ones that had just shattered whatever fragile hope I had left. You're garbage. You don't deserve to be alive. No one would care if you died. I hope you get raped again. A cold wave of nausea rolled through me. The air in my room felt different now. Heavier, suffocating. The walls seemed to press inward, shrinking, closing me off from the world outside. This wasn't a home. This was a cage. I pressed a hand to my chest, trying to steady my breathing, but my heart was slamming against my ribs, erratic and desperate. I needed to get out. I didn't know how. I didn't know where I'd go. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. If I stayed, they would destroy me. A soft creak at the door made my stomach twist. Jessica. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, the same smug smirk curling at her lips. Her eyes sparkled with amusement, like she was savoring every bit of my misery. Read my message yet? Her voice was light, almost playful. Got you all teary-eyed, huh? I didn't answer. My fingers curled into fists in my lap, nails digging into my skin. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction. Jessica took a slow step into my room, dragging her fingers along my desk as if she owned everything inside these four walls, including me. Oh, come on, don't be mad. I was just being honest. She tilted her head, feigning concern. But hey, if it really hurt your feelings that much, maybe I should apologize. She leaned in, her breath brushing against my ear. Or maybe, her voice dropped to a whisper. You should just do it already? My blood turned to ice. Jessica pulled back, flashing a bright, cruel smile. I mean, think about it. No one would have to deal with you anymore. Mom could finally breathe, and I wouldn't have to look at your pathetic face every day. Win-win, right? She laughed, like she had just told the funniest joke in the world, then turned and strolled out, her footsteps fading down the hall. Something inside me cracked wide open. She wanted me dead, not just gone, dead. And the worst part? She wasn't wrong about one thing. If I disappeared, Mom would probably celebrate. I pressed my hands against my temples, my breath coming in short, frantic gasps. I had to leave. Now. But before I could move, the house fell into a strange, eerie silence. No voices, no footsteps, just nothing. I listened harder, my pulse hammering in my ears. No TV, no distant clatter of dishes, no muffled laughter from Jessica. It was too quiet. My gut twisted. Something was wrong. A shadow passed by my door. I barely had time to react before the knob twisted, and then the door flung open. Linda. She stood in the doorway, unmoving, her eyes dark and unreadable. A slow, measured breath left her lips, her shoulders rising and falling. She didn't look angry. That was what scared me the most. I didn't move. She stepped inside and shut the door behind her. The sound of the lock clicking into place sent a jolt of terror through my veins. Where do you think you're going? Her voice was calm, controlled, dangerous. I forced myself to stay still, even as every instinct in my body screamed at me to run. Mom, Shut up! The words sliced through the air, sharp and final. She took another step forward. I could smell her perfume, thick and cloying, a scent that had once been comforting but now felt suffocating. You think you're so smart, she murmured. You think you can just walk out of here and leave me behind? My throat tightened. Mom, please, you're not going anywhere. Her hand shot out and latched onto my wrist, fingers pressing down with bruising force. Pain shot up my arm, but I didn't fight. Not yet. You're my daughter, she hissed, leaning in so close I could see the tiny cracks in her foundation makeup. You belong to me. Everything you have is because of me. You are nothing without me. I tried to pull away, but she tightened her grip. You think you'll survive out there? You'll starve. You'll fail. And when you do, don't expect me to take you back. Because once you walk out that door, you are dead to me. I stopped struggling, not because I was giving in, because something inside me had clicked into place. She was right about one thing. If I left, I could never come back. But if I stayed, I wouldn't survive. My mind raced, calculating my next move. I needed a plan, a distraction, a way out. I forced my body to relax, lowering my gaze. I'm sorry, I whispered. I wasn't thinking. Linda narrowed her eyes. I took a shaky breath, lowering my voice. I don't want to leave, I swear. I was just upset. For a long moment, she studied me, searching for a lie. Then, slowly, she released my wrist. That's right, she said coldly. You're not leaving. You're staying here, where you belong. She turned, walked to the door and unlocked it. Before stepping out, she glanced back. Dinner's in an hour. Don't make me call you twice. And then she was gone. The moment the door clicked shut, I exhaled shakily, clutching my throbbing wrist. The skin was already bruising, but I didn't care. Because I had just bought myself time. I was leaving. And now I knew exactly how. I sat on my bed, my fingers gripping the fabric of my jeans, my mind racing. I had to do this right. There would be no second chances. If I got caught, Linda wouldn't just punish me. She would make sure I never tried to leave again. My phone was still on the bed, Jessica's vile message glaring up at me like a ghost whispering in the dark. You're garbage. You don't deserve to be alive. No one would care if you died. I picked up the phone with steady hands and took a screenshot of the message, then opened my email and attached it to a draft. I created a folder deep in my phone's storage and hid the image there, encrypting it under an innocuous name. Evidence, just in case. I had to be smart. This wasn't just about running, it was about survival. If I failed, I wouldn't just be trapped. I'd be broken. I knelt beside my bed and reached underneath, pulling out a small zippered bag. Inside was everything I had managed to save for my part-time job, $300 in crumpled bills. Not much, but enough to get me somewhere. Next, my laptop, not just a tool, but a connection to the outside world. If I lost it, I lost everything. I wrapped it in a sweater to protect it and stuffed it into my backpack. Clothes had to be minimal. A few shirts, leggings, and a hoodie. Things I could fold into the smallest possible space. I needed to look like I wasn't going anywhere. Then, the most important thing, my documents. Linda kept most of my paperwork in a drawer in her room, but my student ID, social security card copy, and birth certificate printout were hidden in my nightstand. I stuffed them deep into the backpack. My heart pounded. It was almost time. I stared at my phone, hesitating. There was only one person I could think of. A woman I barely knew. She had once told me in hushed words, "If you ever need a place to go, you let me know." I had never taken her seriously until now. My fingers trembled as I typed the message. "I need help. I need to leave. Can I come to you?" Seconds stretched into minutes. My pulse was deafening. Then, a reply. "If you can get here without anyone knowing, I will help." A breath I hadn't realized I was holding escaped me. A lifeline. For the first time in days, I felt something close to relief. I had somewhere to go. Linda never stayed up late. By 11 p.m., she'd be in bed. Jessica usually scrolled through her phone until she passed out. That gave me a narrow window. 12:30 a.m., get dressed. 12:45 a.m., grab my bag, check my phone, make sure no one is awake. 1 a.m., out the door. I repeated the steps in my head like a mantra, keeping my breathing steady. If I got through that door, I was free. I zipped my bag shut slowly, carefully. The sound felt too loud in the silence of my room. Every movement felt like a betrayal to the stillness. And then, the doorknob twisted. The door burst open before I could react. Linda stood there, silhouetted in the dim hallway light. Her eyes flicked to the bag on my bed. Silence. I felt my blood turn to ice. Her gaze moved back to me, slow and deliberate. She knew. She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. The soft click of the lock sent a sharp bolt of terror through me. No escape. "Where do you think you're going?" Her voice was smooth, deceptively calm. That was the worst part, the calm before the storm. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up. She took another step forward, her presence suffocating. "You were going to leave me, weren't you?" I forced myself to breathe. "Mom, Shut up." The words came out like a lash. She moved fast, faster than I expected, and grabbed my wrist. Her nails dug into my skin, a sharp sting cutting through my panic. "You think you can just walk out of here?" Her voice was soft, deadly. "You think you can survive without me?" I struggled, but her grip tightened. "Mom, please." She yanked me closer, her breath hot against my face. "You owe me everything. I made you. I raised you. You are mine." I could smell her perfume, thick and overpowering. The scent I had grown up with, the one that clung to every piece of my childhood, now felt like poison. "You think anyone else will take you?" she hissed. "You think the world is waiting for you with open arms? You will fail. You will starve. And when you do, don't come crawling back, because if you leave, you are dead to me." Her fingers pressed deeper, cutting off circulation. I couldn't breathe, but something inside me snapped. I would not let her keep me here. I stopped struggling. I went limp, my body sagging as if I had given up. My eyes darted across the room, searching. The only way out. The door. Linda felt my body relax, mistaking it for surrender. "That's right," she murmured, her grip loosening just enough. "You belong here." In one sudden motion, I tore my wrist from her grasp and shoved her, hard. She stumbled backward, catching herself on the nightstand. I didn't wait. I lunged for the door, yanking it open just as she let out a furious scream. Footsteps thundered down the hall. "Jessica, get back here, you little bitch!" I ran. Down the hall, down the stairs. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, drowning out everything else. I reached the front door, hands fumbling with the lock, when a crash behind me. Linda had knocked over a lamp. She was coming. I ripped the door open and bolted outside, the cold air slapping me in the face. I didn't stop. I ran into the night, Linda's voice shrieking behind me. "You will never escape me," but I already had. The night air was cold, but my skin burned with panic. I had made it out the front door, but I wasn't safe. Not yet. Not even close. My legs moved on instinct, my lungs already burning as I sprinted down the driveway, the gravel biting into my bare feet. Behind me, Linda's voice ripped through the night, a shriek of pure fury. "Get back here!" I didn't dare look back. I knew what I'd see. Her wild eyes, her hands clawing at empty air, her rage consuming her whole body. If she caught me, I wouldn't get another chance. I knew that as surely as I knew I had to keep running, but the night was not on my side. A pair of headlights flashed at the end of the street. A car. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. Was it a neighbor? A stranger? A chance at safety? But before hope could fully form, I heard another sound. The front door crashing open. "Jessica, oh, this is going to be fun." Her voice was light, teasing, filled with something sick and twisted. I heard her bare feet slap against the pavement as she came after me. Linda screamed behind her. "Grab her!" I pushed harder, forcing my legs to move faster even though every muscle screamed in protest. I reached the sidewalk, my vision tunneling. I couldn't go back. I couldn't be caught. I would rather die than go back. Then, out of nowhere, a hand closed around my wrist. Jessica. Her nails dug into my skin, her grip like iron. She yanked me back, nearly knocking me off balance. "Where do you think you're going, little mouse?" she purred, her breath hot against my ear. "No!" My voice barely escaped before she slapped me across the face. Hard. My vision exploded in white-hot pain, and I stumbled. Jessica yanked me closer, twisting my arm behind my back until I gasped. "You really thought you could leave?" she whispered, mockingly sweet. "Oh, Sarah, you're dumber than I thought." Linda's footsteps pounded toward us. I could feel the heat of her presence before she even spoke. "You ungrateful little bitch," she hissed, voice trembling with rage. "You really thought you could run from me?" My heart was a drumbeat of terror. Linda's eyes were dark, too dark, like bottomless pits. Jessica grinned, her fingers tightening around my wrist. "She's all yours, Mom." Linda raised her hand, fingers curled like claws, ready to strike. I acted before I could think. I swung my head back, slamming it into Jessica's nose. She yelped, her grip loosening just enough for me to twist free. I bolted. Pain throbbed in my cheek where Jessica had hit me, but I didn't care. I ran toward the side of the house, heart racing. There was only one way out now, the backyard. Linda lunged, grabbing at my hair, but I ducked, twisting out of reach. My legs burned as I sprinted toward the fence, my mind a blur of calculations. The gate was locked. I knew that. But the window in the laundry room. I turned sharply, my feet skidding against the grass as I reached the small window near the back door. I grabbed the frame and yanked it open. My arms trembled as I hoisted myself up, kicking wildly, forcing my body through the tiny opening. Then, a hand wrapped around my ankle. "Linda? You're not leaving!" she shrieked, her nails digging into my skin. Desperation took over. I kicked her, hard. My foot connected with her face and she let out a strangled cry. I wrenched myself free and tumbled to the ground on the other side. I scrambled to my feet, ignoring the pain, ignoring everything but the burning need to run. Behind me, I heard the sound of Linda climbing through the window. Jessica's voice rang out, furious. "She's getting away!" I pushed myself harder, sprinting across the yard, toward the back gate. My fingers fumbled with the latch. Stuck. Number. No! Number A sound behind me. A grunt, the rustle of grass. I turned just in time to see Linda reaching for me again. I threw my entire weight against the gate, It groaned, creaked, then burst open. I staggered forward, nearly falling, but I caught myself. And then I was running again, barefoot, scraped, bruised, but free. The road stretched out ahead, dark and empty. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I ran until my legs were jelly, until my throat burned, until my vision blurred with exhaustion. Linda's voice echoed behind me, a final furious promise. You will regret this. You will never be free from me. But she was wrong, because I was free, and I would rather die than let her take that away from me again. The night swallowed me whole. My legs burned, my lungs screamed for air, but I didn't stop running until the house was nothing but a distant nightmare behind me. The street stretched ahead, dark, empty, unfamiliar. The pavement was rough beneath my bare feet, each step sending jolts of pain up my legs, but I barely felt it. I was free. I had escaped. But now what? A sharp gust of wind tore through me, biting through my thin clothes, but the cold barely registered. My body was shaking, not from exhaustion, but from something deeper, something gnawing at the edges of my mind. I had nowhere to go, no home, no family, no one waiting for me. I stopped, standing in the middle of the street, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The silence was overwhelming. I had spent so long trying to get out, trying to survive each day under Linda's roof, that I never let myself think about what came next. Now, I had nothing but the weight of the unknown pressing down on me. I pulled out my phone, hands trembling as I scrolled through my contacts. There was only one name that mattered right now, the woman who had once told me I could come to her if I ever needed help. I pressed call. The phone rang. And rang. And rang. My stomach twisted. Please pick up. Please. I needed someone. I needed anyone. Voicemail. I hung up and tried again. Still nothing. Panic coiled in my chest. I typed out a message, my fingers barely able to move. I need help. Please. I have nowhere else to go. I hit send. The seconds dragged on, stretching into minutes. Then, finally, my phone buzzed with a reply. I'm sorry, Sarah, we can't. Your mom is too dangerous. If she finds out you're here, she'll come after us. We can't take that risk. Please don't contact us again. I stared at the screen. My breath caught in my throat. I read the words again and again. My vision blurred. They were afraid of her, the same way I had been for years. I had been so desperate to believe that someone, anyone, would care enough to help me. But now, standing alone in the middle of an empty street, I finally understood the truth. I had no one. The world suddenly felt so much bigger, so much colder. My legs gave out and I sank onto the curb, my arms wrapping around myself. I wasn't crying. I couldn't. It was like my body had gone completely numb, like my mind refused to process what was happening. I had spent my entire life trying to be invisible in that house, but now, out here, I truly was. I didn't belong anywhere. I had nowhere to sleep, no money for a motel. If I stayed out here, what would happen to me? I had heard the stories. Runaways ending up in worse situations than the ones they escaped from. What if I was next? I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing the thoughts away. I had to keep moving. I needed a plan. And then, like a whisper in the back of my mind, I remembered something. A conversation I had once overheard on TV. A domestic violence shelter. A place for women who had nowhere else to go. I unlocked my phone with shaking fingers, typing into the search bar. Nearest domestic violence shelter. A location popped up, 5 miles away. It wasn't close, but it was my only option. I forced myself to stand. My body screamed in protest, but I pushed forward, one step at a time. I had come too far to stop now. By the time I reached the shelter, I was barely holding myself together. My feet were torn and raw, my clothes damp from the night air, my body exhausted to the point of collapse. The building was small, tucked away in an unassuming neighborhood, its windows dark except for a dim light near the entrance. My heart pounded as I approached the door. What if they turned me away? I hesitated, staring at the doorbell. My finger hovered over it. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I pressed it. A long pause. Then the door creaked open. A woman stood there, middle-aged, kind eyes, wearing a loose sweater and jeans. She looked at me, taking in my appearance. The bruises, the tear-streaked face, the way I was shaking. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "are you here for help?" I opened my mouth. No sound came out. The woman's expression softened. She stepped aside, motioning me in. "Come inside, honey, it's okay. You're safe now." Safe. The word echoed in my head, foreign and unfamiliar. I stepped inside. The warmth of the building hit me instantly, wrapping around my frozen skin. The scent of coffee and fabric softener filled the air, the kind of scent that should have been comforting, but I couldn't feel anything. The woman guided me to a chair. "I just need to ask you a few questions, okay?" Her voice was soft, patient, like she knew I was on the verge of breaking. She pulled out a clipboard. "Your name?" "My name." My identity. The thing Linda had spent years twisting and warping, making me feel like I was nothing. I hesitated, my fingers curling into my lap. I had never really been allowed to be a person before. Finally, I forced the words out. Sarah Carter." The woman gave me a small, reassuring smile. "Okay, Sarah, do you have any family we can contact?" My throat tightened. The answer should have been easy, but it wasn't. Because I didn't have a family. Not anymore. I shook my head. There's no one." Her smile didn't falter. "That's okay. You're not alone anymore." Not alone. Another word that felt too foreign to believe. She reached across the table, placed a warm cup of tea in front of me. "We'll help you, Sarah. You don't have to run anymore." Something inside me cracked. I wasn't sure if it was relief or grief. My chest ached, my vision blurred, but I still didn't cry. I wasn't sure I knew how anymore. But as I sat there, feeling warmth for the first time in what felt like forever, a single thought settled in my mind. Maybe, just maybe, I had finally found a place where I could breathe. Sunlight filtered through the curtains of my apartment, casting a soft glow on the hardwood floor. Outside, the city hummed with life. Cars moving, people chatting, birds singing. It was an ordinary morning, peaceful, in a way I once thought I'd never have. 3 years had passed since I ran through the night, lungs burning, heart racing, leaving behind a house that felt more like a prison than a home. 3 years since I stood at the doors of that shelter, shaking, broken, unsure if I would ever feel safe again. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I had graduated college, landed a stable job, and moved into a small but comfortable apartment that was mine alone. No one screamed at me when I woke up. No one laughed when I cried. No one touched me when I didn't want to be touched. I had built a life. I was free. And yet, some nights, when the world went silent and the darkness pressed in, I still heard the echoes of the past. "You'll never escape me." Linda's voice, Jessica's sneer, the weight of their control. I would shake my head, take a slow breath, and remind myself of the truth. I already had. The past had lost its grip on me, but it had left scars. Silent reminders of battles fought and survived. The notification came as I sipped my morning coffee, scrolling through emails. A message from an unknown number. My stomach tightened as I clicked on it. A single link. A news article. Local woman arrested for child abuse. Neighbors speak out. The name hit me like a slap. Linda Carter. I exhaled slowly, my fingers tightening around the mug. The article detailed everything. The screaming, the shattered glass, the terrified cries of a child. She had adopted a 6-year-old boy. And just like me, he had suffered in silence. But this time someone noticed. A neighbor had recorded it all, reported her. And this time, someone listened. Linda had been arrested for child endangerment, assault, and neglect. She would never hurt anyone again. And Jessica? Without Linda's money and protection, she had spiraled. Gambling, failed investments, mounting debt. The friends who once laughed at my pain had abandoned her the moment she had nothing left to offer. The predator had become the prey, and there was no one left to feed on. I should have felt something. Triumph, satisfaction, a sense of justice. But as I stared at the screen, I realized I felt nothing at all. They had destroyed themselves. I hadn't needed to do a thing. I closed the article. They were gone. For good. I glanced at the clock. Almost noon. He would be home soon. My fiancé. The word still felt foreign sometimes. Love had always been something meant for other people, something I watched from a distance but never truly believed in. Then he came into my life, and he showed me, patiently, without expectation, that love didn't have to hurt. When I was sick, he went out at 2 a.m. to buy medicine. When I woke up from nightmares, he held me and whispered, "You're safe. I'm here." He never raised his voice, never used his hands to punish, never made me feel like I was a burden. He just loved me. His family had embraced me too. They weren't perfect, but they were kind. They didn't manipulate, didn't threaten, didn't make me beg for affection. For the first time in my life, I knew what it felt like to belong. The phone buzzed beside me. Another unknown number. My pulse remained steady as I opened it. A single message. "You think you've won, Jessica." For a moment, I simply stared at the words. Years ago, a message like this would have shattered me, would have sent me spiraling into doubt and fear. But now, I deleted it, blocked the number, set the phone down. She was wrong. I hadn't won because she had lost. I had won because I no longer feared her. I stood up, stretching as I walked to the window. Outside, the city stretched wide and endless. A future waiting for me, a life that belonged to me. I was free, and I always would be.